You guys are sort of rolling into a three-peat. What's the conversations been around with that? I'm lucky enough of being able to play for Ivan and sort of seen the inner sanctums of Penrith, but what's the conversations about you guys coming from back-to-back champions heading into a three-peat?
Yeah, I sort of had the mentality of, I guess, like one in a row rather than sort of talking too much about a three-peat. Obviously, it's a great opportunity and no other team's done it in the NRL era, but it's all about, those 2 years that they've been, we're grateful for the experience we've had from it and the memories we'll have, but, it means nothing for this year. It's a whole new comp and obviously new teams playing well, so we knew we had to go to another level, and that's still part of the process now, is not trying to look too far ahead to the finals or the grand final or anything like that. It's each week, each training session coming in and just trying to improve and enjoying that process.
We'll talk about process a little bit later, but what did you learn from the 2020 experience? Like, you guys were the hot team, walked in. I had Leota and Fisher Harris on the podcast, and he said you guys got bullied.
Yeah.
What was that experience like going through that?
Yeah, it was pretty much that, bro. Like, it was honestly it was a massive experience and learning process for us. And it's hard to say, but I don't know if we would have won those next two comps if we had scraped away and won that. Like, I think we learned so much just about big games and how different they are and the sort of mentality you have to have. Melbourne had been there, done that, and yeah, they taught us a lesson. And it's a very valuable one now. It hurt at the time, but yeah, there was a lot to take out of it. And yeah, just the sort of mentality around it, I think, and just that sort of, we did get bullied and it was kind of embarrassing, so we didn't want to let it happen again.
How do you get over it?
Oh, it was tough, man. Like, that year, we pretty much went straight into Origin as well, so had 2 days like on the pitch just trying to forget it. Then went straight into Origin camp, lost that. So it was like, after that, I was just like, it was just a whirlwind, bro. Like, it was a massive year. Like, played really well. Probably played the best footy I'd played so far in my career. And then to finish it with, like, lost the grand final and lost the Origin series, like, back to back, was just like, it was crazy. But I actually, like, looking back on it, I enjoyed that now. Like, at the time, it sucked, but I did learn a lot out of it. And I think it's sort of shaped me as who I am today. And I try to watch the games back as hard as it was. Like, I'd never used to really like to watch games that we lost or I didn't play well. But watch both those games back and just sort of learn from that.
Oh, I can't picture anything worse than watching those games back. Yeah. I remember watching this thing about Kobe Bryant, and there was a WNBA player and she ended up losing. Forgot her name, but like he said, like, that's one of the most important experiences you can go through. When you strike me as a student of the game, when you look at that game, was there any key moments that you spotted there, like, if I could only change that? Or was it like that, or was it like the whole team experience? Was it preparation throughout the week? Like, what was the key takeaways you got from watching that back?
Oh, it was a bit of everything, and it's funny you mentioned Kobe because that was actually the reason we watched it.
Oh, bullshit.
Like, Fisher's like a massive Kobe fan, and he found that video, and then we're like, let's do it. And we sort of watched it as a team, the grand final. But yeah, I think for me, it wasn't so much the plays in the game. Like, looking back to that 2020 grand final, I obviously had the intercept, which was like, I hate watching that back because it was just a bad moment. It was a bad moment in the game and probably cost us the game, but it was just my reaction after that, which I was most disappointed with, and was what I wanted to change the most. Like, there's going to be moments in games where, things don't go right and there's going to be mistakes. And, I still think back to that, and I knew what I saw and wanted to do it. I would still do it again today, but I just didn't execute it. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just like being able to live with those mistakes, but it's what you do next. And that's probably been the biggest learning process for me, is particularly in big games, if you do fuck something up, it's about your next process and getting back in the game, where that game was just like the next 20, 30 minutes was honestly a blur for me. I just wasn't in it.
Oh, really? So you talked about your reaction from that. Is that from like a body language standpoint or mentally?
I think mentally. Yeah, I think mentally, just trying to focus on what you got to do next and what you can do to get back in the game. I think the more you sort of focus on mistakes, you're missing what's in front of you, and just trying to stay present. That's probably been a massive thing for me over the last few years. And after that is just taking on that sort of mantra of staying present at all times and being in the moment. No matter what happened, whether it's a good play or a bad play, the next one's still to come, and that's the most important thing. How
much did you learn something like that off a guy like James Maloney?
Yeah, a lot, bro. He's the best at it. Like, without like talking about it, just his actions of how he does it is like, yeah, it's crazy, bro. I've never seen someone throw more intercepts or kick it out in the full or all that, give away penalties and still be behind the line talking about what he's going to do next. And He was a good one for that. He used to have a saying, I think he was like, I might make 2 mistakes in a row, but the next 8 things I do will be good. So he's just like did feel different. Where I was probably the flip side of that. Like I reckon I was always sort of thinking like quite negatively and not wanting to make mistakes. And he was opposite. So it was actually really cool to learn off him and see how he was in that sort of mindset.